It was supposed to be a quiet weekend at the lake. My wife and I had finally carved out some time to escape to our cabin, just the two of us. No work calls, no city noise, just peace. The air was crisp, the water calm, and the only sounds were birds overhead and the hum of boats in the distance. But that calm didn't last long. Before we even had the chance to unload the cooler, a woman with a clipboard and a sour expression came marching up our driveway like she owned the place. She didn't introduce herself, jumped right into questions asking if we were the rightful owners, demanding to know why my wife was there unattended, and talking about HOA rules that we'd supposedly violated. Her tone was sharp, and her attitude. Classic HOA Karen. You know the type, self-appointed neighborhood watch, thrives off conflict, and thinks she's got authority just because she prints newsletters and hands out fines for overgrown grass. At first, we tried to be polite, thinking maybe it was all a misunderstanding. But within minutes, she was threatening to call the cops, actually dialing 911, while standing on our porch like we were trespassers on our own property. Now here's where things get interesting. What Karen didn't realize what she couldn't have known is that my wife isn't just any ordinary woman. She doesn't just work in law enforcement. She runs it. As in, she's the head of the state police. The woman Karen was trying to get kicked off her own land has more jurisdiction than anyone within 100 miles, but we didn't say a word. We let her call, we let her dig her own hole. Because sometimes the best response is patience. And a badge she never saw coming. And when the officers showed up, that's when everything flipped. 2 sheriff deputies pulled up just as Karen was pacing at the edge of our driveway, arms crossed like she was guarding a royal palace. She ran to their cruiser the second they stepped out, waving her arms and talking fast, throwing around words like unauthorized occupant, security risk, and non-reside. From a distance, it looked like she thought she was filing some major criminal complaint. Meanwhile, my wife just stood calm on the porch, sipping her coffee like this was just another morning briefing. She didn't say a word, didn't flash. Her badge didn't try to correct Karen, she just watched. The deputies made their way over to us, trying to stay neutral but clearly confused. I could tell they were used to HOA drama, but probably not this level of boldness. One of them asked my wife for ID, and I saw his eyebrows lift the moment he read her name. Then his eyes darted to Karen, who was still mid-rant. The second deputy leaned in and whispered something to the first one. You could almost feel the shift in the air. Karen, still oblivious, kept going, saying she had every right to report us, and that she was tired of people abusing their little lake privileges. She even claimed we were squatting in a property we've owned for over a decade. I looked over at my wife, waiting for her to shut it all down, but she gave me that look. The one that said, let it play out. And that's when I realized she wanted this on record. She wanted it documented just how far Karen was willing to go, how certain she was in her made-up authority. Because the real story here wasn't about us just being interrupted on a weekend. It was about someone trying to police what they didn't understand, and the truth. It was about to catch up with her. The lead deputy took a slow step back, reading my wife's ID again, clearly putting things together. Meanwhile, Karen wasn't backing down. She started pointing at the cabin, then at our car, then at my wife, like she was connecting dots in some wild conspiracy theory. They don't belong here, she snapped. This area is private, strictly homeowners only. I've lived here 22 years. I've never seen them before. My wife finally spoke, calm and steady. And you are? She asked, no attitude, just enough weight behind the words to make Karen flinch. I'm on the HOA board, Karen said, like it was a badge of honor. I have every right to question suspicious activity. You think just because someone says they own a place, they do? That's not how it works. People scam these neighborhoods all the time. She actually doubled down, turning to the officers and saying, "Look at her. She's too commits an act. Something's off." That's when I had to bite my tongue. She really thought she could just will her version of reality into truth. The officers exchanged glances. One pulled out a notebook, but it didn't look like he was writing anything, Karen said. It was more like he was documenting her. Then came the subplot we didn't expect. From the cabin next door, another neighbor stepped out. Mr. McKinley. Quiet guy, Vietnam vet, spends most of his days fishing or fixing up old radios. He raised a hand. "They've been here every summer for years," he said. "Good people, leave 'em alone." Karen spun around, furious. "Stay out of this, Harold," she snapped. But he didn't flinch. "You've run off half the families." "On this street already," he said. The tension thickened. More neighbors started coming out, some quietly watching, some whispering. One woman pulled out her phone and started recording. It wasn't just about us anymore. This wasn't just some HOA dispute, it was something deeper. A power struggle, a neighborhood turning on itself. And Karen. She still didn't know who she was messing with, and the storm hadn't even started. Yet Karen's face twisted as more neighbors stepped outside. She clearly didn't expect this kind of attention, especially not people standing on their porches with arms crossed, quietly backing us. The woman filming didn't say a word, just slowly panned her phone across the scene. Karen noticed and barked, "You can't record me without permission." But no one listened. Even the deputies stayed quiet, watching it all unfold. Then came the questions Karen couldn't answer. One of the deputies asked her if she had legal authority to remove property owners from their own land. She hesitated, then blurted out something about community standards and resident safety. My wife still hadn't revealed her position. She didn't have to. Her calmness made everyone more nervous than if she'd shouted. It was like a storm about to hit, but no one knew where the lightning would strike. Karen kept going. She started pulling papers out of her folder, photocopies of old HOA newsletters, a list of made-up violations, even a highlighted section about noise levels and guest rules. She waved them like legal documents. The lead deputy politely asked if she had proof of ownership for the cabin she was trying to enforce rules over. Karen blinked. "Well, no, but I know for a fact they're not members of this community board," she said. That's when a man from the back of the crowd called out, "We voted her down last year. She hasn't been on the board since." The silence after that was loud. The deputy turned toward my wife again, asking her if she could provide identification showing she was the owner. Without saying a word, she reached into her bag and handed him not only the deed to the cabin, but also her official badge. The second deputy took a long look at it, then slowly handed it back, his eyes wide with recognition. Karen craned her neck, trying to see what it was, but my wife slipped it back into her coat before she could catch more than a glimpse. The wind picked up. A boat engine echoed in the distance, and with the entire street watching, Karen took a step back. Just one, but it was enough. The balance had shifted. Everyone felt it. And then, the radio on the deputy's shoulder crackled to life. The radio crackled again, this time louder, clearer. "Unit 3, we've got a flagged vehicle. Registered to that cabin address. Reported stolen 2 nights ago in the city. Requesting confirmation." The deputy froze mid-breath, his eyes locking with my wife's. Karen's jaw dropped open, then curled into the smuggest grin I'd ever seen. "I knew something was off," she hissed. "See, I told you they don't belong here. That SUV's stolen." For a second, even I felt my stomach twist. But my wife didn't blink. She turned slowly to me and said under her breath, "They ran the wrong plate." The deputy muttered something into his shoulder mic, stepping away to double-check. Karen was practically bouncing. "I want them removed right now," she barked. Arrest them both. You've got enough evidence now. The HOA will back me." She actually looked around, expecting applause from the neighbors, but no one clapped. A few people shook their heads. One man muttered, "This woman's lost it." Then another twist. My wife pulled out her phone and made a single call. Short, precise. "Hey, it's me. I need a vehicle flag cleared." "Yes, that one." Mismatched entry wasn't stolen. Owners. Standing right here. She ended the call, then handed her phone to the deputy. "You'll get a confirmation within 2 minutes." He hesitated, but took it, listening quietly as the update came through. Karen was pacing now. Losing control of the scene she thought she'd orchestrated. "You're covering for her?" she shouted. "This whole thing is a setup. You're all in on it." She was unraveling. Even the neighbors who'd stayed quiet before were backing away, whispering, realizing this wasn't just about HOA rules anymore. This was something bigger, personal, obsessive. The deputy turned back toward Karen. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down," he said. But she didn't. She reached into her purse quick, aggressive, pulling out more papers, waving them in the air. "I have proof. They forged those documents." That's when the second deputy moved fast, gently but firmly taking her arm. "Let's step back," he said, because what none of us knew yet what would come out later was that Karen had a much bigger secret of her own, one that made this whole HOA stunt look like just the surface. Karen kept shouting as the deputy guided her toward the cruiser, still flailing that folder of papers like it was going to magically turn the tide. "I know something's wrong here." She screamed. "She's hiding something." People like that don't just show up and take over. The neighbors stood still, watching with a strange mix of pity and disbelief. It was clear now this wasn't just some overzealous HOA dispute. Karen had been holding on to something darker. Just then, the call came through confirming everything my wife said. The vehicle, not stolen. The property, legally owned. My wife's credentials. Verified, the deputy gave her a quiet nod, signaling it was over. "Sorry for the trouble, ma'am," he said. But before we could even think about heading inside, the real twist dropped. The second deputy, who had been flipping through the notes Karen handed over earlier, called the first one over. "Hey, check this out," he said, pointing to a page Karen had stuck in her folder by accident. It wasn't HOA material. It was an official noticized to Karen, a legal letter from the county about misappropriated HOA funds and a pending investigation into financial abuse. My wife stepped closer, recognizing the seal on the top of the document. "This came from our office," she said quietly. Karen turned pale, completely frozen. That's when it all made sense. The aggression, the lies, the desperate need to paint us as outsiders. She wasn't trying to protect the neighborhood. She was trying to cover her tracks, distract everyone before the real storm hit. But her paranoia made her sloppy. And now she'd handed over the very thing that would unravel her. The deputy placed her under temporary detainment while they ran the document through official channels. As she sat in the back of the cruiser, silent now, my wife leaned in just enough to say, "Next time, maybe don't pick a fight with the state police." We finally walked back to our cabin, neighbors waving, some even apologizing. The lake was calm again, but now everyone knew who really belonged there.